Now let's move on. We're going to go back to the show. Art Laffer, former Reagan economist. Steve Moore, host of More Money on WABC Radio. And Dan Briette, former U.S. Energy Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Dan Briette, it really is to some extent about the money. And I'm glad to hear President Trump mention the money, because I think, not only reopening the Strait of Hormuz, but who gets the money? Where's the money? Who's going to allocate the money? All of that stuff. If I really want to end Iran's threat forever, then I know the movie was Show Me the Money, but I would just say, let Trump run the money. He's the guy to do it.
Great to be with you, Larry. And that's like, look, I think you're exactly right. Who controls the money is going to control the outcome here. Who controls the oil is going to control the outcome here. And I think what the president's plan is going to look a lot like what we did in Venezuela, where we allow desanctioning of the oil coming out of Venezuela. We allow PDVSA oil that's already on the ocean to be traded legally again. I think all those things are the right move, but the money is going to go into a bank account run by the United States Treasury. And as long as that is the program and the regime or the path that we choose going forward, I think it's the correct one. I would argue against making this money available to the regime in Iran or the regime in Venezuela. So if that's the plan, I'm fully supportive.
So one other thing kind of related to that. Look, I don't know the exact numbers. Maybe you do, but tankers are moving through the Strait of Hormuz, if Iran lets them. Okay, and there's tankers with oil cargoes that are going to China and to India. That's it, from reports, and makes sense to me. Now, exactly how much, I don't know. There's also reports that Iran has put a little bit of a commission on top of whatever else is there. But to allow those tankers to go through and then to desanction them on, so-called high sea, oil on the high seas, doesn't that give Iran money? I mean, if there are sales, regardless of the point of sale, the presumption is Iran's going to collect those revenues. And I don't want Iran to have any money at all right now.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Larry. That's correct. But my understanding is that the oil that's being desanctioned is the oil that's outside of the strait at this point. So if that's correct, if that information is correct, then what we're really doing is putting that oil back on the open market to be traded globally rather than going straight to China, which is where it was headed in the first place.
But who gets the money? Who gets it? There's a transaction, there's a sale. I mean, I think it's going to China and India, but whatever. I'm just saying, all right, so now it moves through the Strait of Hormuz, and now it's floating on the open seas someplace, wherever the open seas are, okay? This is like a 1970s fire drill. That's what we used to talk about. But someone's going to make money from that, and I'm afraid it will be Iran.
Yeah, well, if that is correct, then I'm with you. I think it's important that the money not go to the regime. But I guess we'll have to wait and see what the details are. And I'm not privy to all the details, Larry. So my understanding is that this money is going to be held in abeyance or held in escrow and run by the U.S. Department of Treasury. If I'm incorrect about that, then I'm with you. This money cannot go to the regime in Iran.
100%. I wasn't speculating for it. I was just worried about some decisions made that are already made. But I'll move on. Art Laffer, a big day in the markets. Okay, let's come back to the markets and the economy. Are you concerned now? I've got probably 3/4 of Wall Street, maybe more, talking about a longer duration, Arthur, of the war or the height of oil prices, which I know the president wants them to come down like a stone if there's a deal, but maybe there won't be stone-like. Maybe it's going to take longer. I'm not smart enough to know. But are you worried about duration? Are you worried about a really recessionary impact from higher oil prices? How do you see it?
Well, I don't see that happening, Larry. And when I look at oil prices today, I don't know what they ended up today, about $90, $88, something like that. They've been much, much higher historically when the embargo was put on, when Kuwait was invaded, when Russia took Ukraine. All of those periods had much higher oil prices than we have today, and they fell very sharply. What I think really is showing today is what happens when there's a cessation of hostilities. When the U.S. pulls out, you can see how the markets respond. They really want to get back to normal trade. And, we have a very strong dollar. We have lowering inflation expectations, my view of the world. And I think, we're in very good shape right now with Iran, with Venezuela, with Cuba. And I think we can defang them and then just get the heck out of there. And we'll be in great shape as far as the world economy is concerned.
All right. Well, Steve Moore, we just heard from Dr. Pangloss up there. That's good. We need some optimism about this entire story. Who is Dr. Pangloss? We'll do that in another segment.
Me.
Steve, I know. Well, me too, for all that matter. Look, I'm always optimistic.
I know you're as bad as I am, Larry.
I learned it from you. What do you mean? I got the whole thing from you. Steve Moore, the Wall Street editorial page, though, got it right. Democrats, if it moves, the Democrats are going to tax it. And I'm just looking at a quick list. You have more ammo on this, but the Democrats want to raise taxes in California, the state of Washington, New York, Rhode Island, Virginia, and Maryland, just to name a few. Now, that's a terrific way to boost the post-war economy. Yes or no?
Well, Larry, people should go to our website, votewithyourfeet.net, and you can just click on any pair of states, and you can see where people are moving to and where they're moving from. And you can also find out how much money they're taking with them. And what you see is a clear pattern, unmistakable, that these high-tax blue states like Illinois, like New York, like New Jersey, like Massachusetts, I could go on and on, are bleeding people. And they're not just bleeding people, they're bleeding billions and tens of billions of dollars. I'll give you one example. Florida, where Donald Trump was just flying back from. Florida, in the last 10 years, has imported $1 trillion from refugees from New York and from Connecticut, New Jersey, all of these other states. So my point is, keep track of what's happening with these tax rates. Washington State just did the dumbest thing probably in any state in 5 years. They went from having the lowest income tax, Larry, in the world at 0 to 10%, which puts them one of the highest. You're going to see a mass migration of Microsoft employees, Starbucks employees, Amazon employees out of there. By the way, I learned all this from Arthur Laffer as well. Taxes matter, and one of the states that are growing is Texas, Florida, Tennessee. No income tax at all, Larry.
But wait a minute. Governor Hochul, a year ago, told everybody who's going to Florida to go ahead, get lost, go to Florida, including Donald Trump.
Exactly.
That's what she said. Now she's saying, begging them to come back from Florida, and she's saying that she'll be nice to them. Well, how could she be nice to them if they have huge tax hikes on the drawing board? I mean, Mondami wants. I mean, make up her mind, because either she hates them. I mean, she
says it's their patriotic duty to come back to New York from Palm Beach.
First of all, Dan Briette, I mean, I'm going to cut you in on this. You can't even get, the only thing Hochul has going for her, you can't get to Florida because there's 8-hour waiting lines in the New York airports. There's also a terrible tragedy in LaGuardia, and I just want to say how awful that is. We'll cover that in a minute. But you get my point. All these airports, you can't, Philadelphia, Chicago, Atlanta, you can't get south because the Democrats want to tax you, and then they want to sabotage your means of transportation.
That's exactly right, Larry. And you can't get north either. Let me just tell you, you can't move energy through the state of New York, so we can't get it to Boston. We can't go south, and we can't go north. It's a mess up there.
What the hell kind of state is this? First, she tells them to go to hell, and then she says, come back, be patriotic. I don't understand anything. Arthur, well, actually, you got to go, you have to meet with Hochul. How about that? Meet with her, explain to her why lower taxes are better than higher. No, don't do that. Help Bruce Blakeman. He has a shot at beating her. Dr. Pangloss, all right, we got to get out of here. You guys are terrific. I shouldn't have had that outburst. Art Laffer, Steve Moore, Dan Briette, thanks for helping us.